Okay, traveling photographers, this one's for you. If you're a person who travels a lot or even just a little bit and takes photography at least somewhat seriously, I have a question for you. Have you ever gotten home from a trip, pulled the photos off your SD card, and started going through them and noticed that you have photos of places that you totally forgot you even went? So many photographers I talk to struggle with this part of photography. And it's funny how many problems photographers face a few years into a photography career that have nothing to do with photography at all. I have a habit of walking 10 to 15 miles in a day of street photography. Look, I firmly believe in putting in your 10,000 hours. I would simply rather replace all of my camera's shutters than potentially miss a moment in a place that I may never visit again. But this isn't just an issue for professionals. I talked to a coworker of mine a couple of years ago who was really heavily invested in some high-end Sony gear, but he had stopped taking his camera with him anywhere, on vacation, on hikes, whatever, because he felt like he was missing out on making actual memories with his family, with the people around him. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what you might say. Look, I travel so I can take photos. Photography is the best part of the trip. Okay, I hear you, fair enough, but let's back up for a second and talk about exactly what happened to make me inspired to make this video. I've seen Portugal, especially Lisbon, through the eyes of so many photographers that I look up to, and this place has been number one on my list for a long time. To finally touch down in the city even felt a little bit surreal, almost like meeting a celebrity or something. I don't take very many trips that you could call vacations. There typically isn't anything relaxing about the way that I travel. Often I'm working my full-time job, just like I would be at home, getting groceries, cleaning, doing chores, keeping up on my businesses, my YouTube channel, all of it. I typically spend weeks or even months in each destination, and I can take my time and always be in a new place without really disrupting my work or my normal schedule. At least that's the idea. Usually that's not exactly what happens. It's hard not to have this mental countdown in the back of your mind. A couple of months can be a huge amount of time, but it can also be a very, very small amount of time. And that's the mindset that I take with me into every single trip, regardless of the duration. I'll sleep when I'm home, except for me, I'm never really 100% home. Because of how important it already was to me to visit this country that I had been dying to see for years, and knowing myself well enough after so much travel, I was aware that there was a significant risk of me putting very unrealistic expectations on this trip. One thing that's been on my mind a lot lately is how easy it is to forget to enjoy things. I think I've known in the back of my mind that I'm missing out on things even when they're right in front of me. I find myself wondering if I really took in the view, the sunset, the museum, the artwork, my surroundings, or whether I only saw it from the back of my camera. By the time I've looked up from hours and hours of shooting, can I even recall what I saw, heard, smelled, tasted? So contrary to the way that I typically travel and live my life, I put my camera down a lot more on this trip. I let myself miss a ton of shots, and don't get me wrong, I can't just stand still. I walked who knows how many kilometers every day and spent hours and hours shooting the city extensively or maybe even exhaustively. It's what I love to do when I travel. I shoot to travel, I travel to shoot. But maybe it's because I've been doing this for a while now and the novelty has worn off a bit. Maybe I needed to get the obsession out of my system. Maybe I just needed to take hundreds of thousands of photos to finally be able to take a step back and be more selective about what I decide to spend my time composing or not. Yeah, maybe it's something that just happens naturally to photographers that are taking this pretty seriously after a few years of so much shooting and experimentation and travel and just time spent behind the camera. But it was also a lot more intentional about how I spent my time this trip. So yes, experience and time I'm sure played some part in all of this, but I also spent a lot of time at parks sipping an espresso. I took a whole day off in Cascais with just a film camera. I practiced ordering all my meals and making basic conversation and asking questions in Portuguese with anybody who didn't look too busy or annoyed to be, talking to a tourist. Actually, I found that patience and willingness to entertain me as a guest in their country really admirable. I can't say that I would have even had the same patience for a tourist myself, but I bonded with Brazilians over how different European Portuguese is from Brazilian Portuguese. I laughed with Portuguese people at my own inability to understand very basic phrases because of the same, all things that I probably wouldn't have had time for on other trips. Perhaps in looking back and recounting my own experiences and what I did differently on this trip, something will resonate with you, and you can learn from me rather than repeating the same mistakes that I've made in the last couple years of travel. I'm really incredibly grateful for this opportunity that I've had to learn more about myself, how to make the most of all these experiences I'm so lucky to have. I never want to take anything for granted because I'm also acutely aware of how suddenly opportunities and circumstances can change and these things can be taken away. Because I made this much more intentional effort to pace myself in Portugal, I can recall the museums I saw, the people I met and actually took the time to talk to. Slowing down a little is relatively new for me. Not rushing from place to place feels difficult sometimes, but we're always learning. Sometimes the day calls for rushing around, taking a million photos and really putting in the miles, wearing out your shoes. Others, you just need to sit by the water in a place as beautiful as Cascais, knowing that you are physically out of film to take any more photos and just argue with a waiter over whether caipirinhas come from Brazil or Portugal. And it's Brazil, by the way.